where it came from. Now, eventually, they figured out this object, now named 3I Atlas, was an interstellar visitor.
Is that we see an image very similar to the Hubble Space Telescope, this camera that was used on ExoMars.
The official story is that 3I Atlas is a comet.
Well, it's something we've never seen before in solar system comets. But these are icy rocks that are in our backyard.
But the latest images, captured not from Earth but from the surface of Mars, prove that to be a lie. While the object was hidden from our telescopes in the sun's blind spot, the Perseverance rover had a perfect view. NASA scientists spent a week analyzing the rover's data in complete secrecy, and what they found was so shocking it caused a panic.
This object has just been discovered. 3I Atlas was discovered on July 1st by the NASA-funded Atlas survey. That's going to be barely inside the orbit of Mars, and then it's going to keep going on its way out of the solar system.
The first real photos of 3I Atlas don't show a tail of gas trailing behind it. They show a focused beam of light firing forward. A rover's impossible mission. But not all things are what they seem. While Earth was losing sight, another world was getting a front row seat. Mars, in its orbit on the other side of the sun, was perfectly positioned to watch the whole show. The thing nobody tells you is that our robotic explorers on Mars are not just geologists, they are also our most distant eyes.
On Earth, a geologist can find an interesting rock, crack it open with a hammer, and just look at what's inside. But we're not ready to send a human geologist to Mars yet.
At the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, a wild, almost desperate idea started to take shape.
This is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or JPL, and it's a federally funded research and development center that is focused on building spacecraft to explore outer space.
What if they could turn one of the Mars rovers into an impromptu astronomical observatory? It was a long shot, to put it mildly. The Perseverance rover, a 1-ton, $3 billion nuclear-powered science lab, was designed to drill into rocks and search for signs of ancient life, not to track faint, fast-moving objects in the sky. Its primary camera system, Mastcam-Z, is a marvel of engineering capable of zooming in on a fly from over a football field away. But aiming it at a specific point in the vast Martian sky to capture a faint object, moving at over 100,000 miles per hour, was a feat it was never built for. The software was all wrong. The targeting systems were designed for stationary rocks, not celestial mechanics. It required a team of engineers to work around the clock, writing entirely new code on the fly and beaming it across 140 million miles of space. What many overlooked was the immense risk. A single mistake in the code could have the rover pointing its sensitive optics too close to the sun, permanently frying its sensors. It was a high-stakes gamble, using a priceless national asset for a task it was never meant to perform. But the potential reward was too great to ignore. For a few precious weeks, a lone robot on another world would be humanity's only witness to the mysteries of 3I Atlas. The command sequence was uploaded. On the desolate red plains of Jezero crater, Perseverance silently tilted its mast upward, its cameras turning away from the rusty soil and toward the inky blackness above. For the first time, a machine built to look down was being asked to look out, to become our last line of sight. The rover was now hunting for a ghost, and no one knew what it would find. The data trickled back to Earth slower than a dial-up modem. Each packet of information, carrying just a fragment of an image, had to travel for nearly 13 minutes at the speed of light to cross the gulf between Mars and Earth. At JPL, a team of anxious scientists gathered in a secure data room, watching as the first grainy, black and white images began to assemble themselves, pixel by pixel, on the main screen. The first few frames showed exactly what they expected, a black, star-dusted sky. They ran filters, enhanced the contrast, and stacked the images to reduce noise. And then, they saw it. It wasn't a smudge. It wasn't a fuzzy comet. It was a sharp, defined object, and it was doing something that was utterly, fundamentally wrong. Every comet ever observed has a tail or two, made of gas and dust, pushed away from the object by the solar wind. That tail always points away from the sun. It's one of the basic rules of celestial mechanics. But the image from Perseverance showed the opposite. Streaming from the front of 3I Atlas was a narrow, focused cone of light, punching forward into the darkness. It wasn't a tail, it was a headlight. This confirmed the vague hints seen by the Hubble and Webb telescopes before the object entered the sun's glare, but this was different. This wasn't a faint, ambiguous glow. The rover's Mastcam Z, with its powerful zoom, captured the beam in horrifying detail. It was structured. It had a defined origin point on the object's surface
and first spotted this object back in July. It's a comet, now named 3I Atlas,
and maintained its tight, conical shape for thousands of miles before dissipating. In the control room, there was a stunned silence. Scientists started running diagnostics, convinced it had to be an error, a camera artifact, a lens flare, a data processing glitch. They ran the raw data through a dozen different models. Each time, the result was the same. The beam was real. One senior astronomer who had spent 40 years studying comets was seen quietly leaving the room, his face pale. What many overlooked in that initial shock was the sheer power implied by the image. For an object to project a focused beam of light against the pressure of the solar wind would require an incredible amount of energy. The sun's radiation pushes outward with constant force. To create a headlight would be like trying to shine a flashlight into a hurricane and have the beam hold perfectly straight. This wasn't outgassing, this wasn't a normal cometary process, this was something else, something that behaved as if it had its own power source. Wild theories began to fly around the lab in hushed whispers.
And we are about to get the highest resolution images of 3I Atlas when it comes within 29 million kilometers from Mars.
Was it some kind of natural but previously unknown phenomenon, a solar wind bow shock or an exotic plasma interaction? Or was it something artificial? The image was immediately classified and a strict media blackout was imposed. The team knew that if this picture got out, it would cause a global panic. For the first time, there was tangible photographic evidence that an interstellar object was not just a passive rock, but something active, something that was breaking the laws of physics. The image from Mars wasn't an answer. It was a terrifying question. The team had a photograph of the impossible. Now they had 1 week to figure out what it meant before 3I Atlas disappeared forever. A week of silent panic. The next 7 days at JPL were unlike anything in the agency's history. The project was moved to a secure off-site facility. The team was locked down, cut off from the outside world. Their one and only task was to analyze every photon of light from the Perseverance images. They weren't just studying a picture, they were dissecting a crime scene, and the victim was the known laws of physics. They fed the data into supercomputers, including a specialized quantum AI that had been developed for pattern recognition in complex datasets. The AI was tasked with analyzing the structure of the forward-facing beam, looking for anything that wasn't random noise. For the first 3 days, the results were inconclusive. The beam was stable, but its light seemed to be a mix of simple reflected sunlight and ionized gas. Then on the 4th day, the AI found something. Buried deep within the beam's light spectrum, hidden under layers of natural emissions, was a signal. It wasn't a radio wave, it was a structured modulation in the light itself, a series of rapid, repeating pulses. The pulses were occurring at a frequency so high that no natural phenomenon could explain them. They were organized, complex, and followed a clear mathematical pattern. It was a code. This was the moment the scientists fell to their knees.
Somewhere between 1,000 to 100,000 times more massive than the other 2 interstellar objects that we've seen before.
It was a scene of quiet, world-shattering revelation. One physicist reportedly became physically ill. Another simply sat staring at the screen, repeating the words, "It can't be." The thing nobody tells you is that in science, a truly impossible result isn't exciting, it's terrifying. It means your entire understanding of the universe is wrong, and this was the most impossible result imaginable. The object wasn't just shining a light, it was transmitting information. It was talking. The panic was palpable. Who or what was sending this message, and what did it say? The AI went to work on the code. It was a non-binary language based on complex geometric and fractal patterns. As the AI began to translate, the first fragments of the message appeared on the screen. It wasn't a greeting, it wasn't a declaration of peace, it was a schematic. The decoded patterns were engineering blueprints of breathtaking complexity. They showed diagrams of energy systems, star charts of unknown constellations, and most chillingly, what appeared to be biological information, a detailed map of a complex, non-DNA-based genetic structure. The implications were almost too much to process. 3I Atlas wasn't just a piece of technology, it was an archive, a library, a probe carrying the foundational knowledge of another civilization. But why was it broadcasting this information? Was it a message in a bottle, a desperate attempt to preserve its creator's legacy? Or was it something more sinister? Some on the team theorized it was a Trojan horse, a data packet designed to be discovered, perhaps containing a virus or a code that could infect our own computer systems. The wild theories escalated. Maybe the object was a terraforming machine and the beam was scanning our solar system, analyzing its resources. Maybe it was a weapon, and the beam was its targeting system, currently in a low-power scan mode before it reached its destination. The discovery of the coded light beam transformed 3I Atlas from a mystery into a potential threat. It was an intelligence.
Exposure being long and seeing many, one after the other, as it moves across the Martian sky.
And its intentions were completely unknown. But the AI wasn't finished. It found one more piece of the puzzle, a single image embedded in the signal that would make the schematic of an alien genome seem like a minor detail. What it showed would change not just our future, but our entire past. A forgotten past. Deep within the complex fractal code being broadcast by 3I Atlas, the AI isolated a single coherent image. It wasn't a star map or a scientific diagram, it was a face. But it was a face that has haunted humanity's imagination for over a century, a face that should only exist in mythology. The image transmitted from the interstellar object was a near-perfect match for the stylized depictions of the ancient Sumerian gods, the Anunnaki found on 6,000-year-old clay tablets. The elongated head, the large almond-shaped eyes, the tall, slender frame, it was all there. It was as if a figure from our most ancient myths was staring back at them from across the cosmos. You see, for decades, researchers like Zecharia Sitchin have been dismissed as fringe theorists for suggesting that the Sumerian tales of the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came, were not myths, but historical accounts of extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth, genetically engineered humanity as a slave race to mine gold, and were later revered as gods. Mainstream science had always laughed off this idea, but now an object from another star system was broadcasting a picture of one of these very beings. The connection was undeniable and terrifying. The room at JPL fell into a stunned, horrified silence. This discovery didn't just suggest we weren't alone, it suggested our entire history, our religions, and our very biology were the result of an ancient alien intervention. The team cross-referenced the schematics from the beam with known human history. The biological data, the non-DNA genetic code, provided a possible blueprint for the missing link in human evolution, the unexplained jump in brain capacity that scientists have never been able to account for. What if we weren't an accident of evolution? What if we were an upgrade? The star charts in the beam didn't point to a random location in the galaxy. They mapped a trajectory from the Zeta Reticuli star system, a place long associated with modern UFO lore, directly to our solar system, specifically highlighting a 10th planet on a long elliptical orbit, the planet the Sumerians called Nibiru, the legendary home of the Anunnaki. To put it mildly, this wasn't a coincidence. This was a confirmation. 3I Atlas was a piece of their technology. But why was it here now? The AI offered a final, chilling theory based on the object's trajectory. It wasn't just passing through. Its strange maneuvers and gravity-defying actions near Mars weren't random. They were course corrections. The object was using the planet's gravity to slow down and adjust its path. Its destination, the AI calculated, was Earth's orbit. It wasn't a messenger, it was a scout. Or perhaps it was a herald announcing the return of its creators. What many overlooked in the panic was the timing. The Sumerian text claimed the Anunnaki returned to our solar system on a cyclical basis, following the long orbit of their home planet Nibiru. Were we approaching the time for another visit? Was 3I Atlas an automated probe sent ahead to check on the project? To see what had become of their creation? The implications are beyond staggering. It means that humanity is not the master of its own destiny. We may be nothing more than a long-running experiment, a colony of a galactic empire that has been gone for so long we forgot we were ever owned. The history of human civilization is not our own. It's a footnote in someone else's. The truth is, we may be a species with amnesia, living in a world built for us but not by us, and worshiping gods who are simply our former masters. We, the people of today, are like a man who finds a complex switchboard in his basement and, not knowing its true purpose, uses it to hang his coat. Is this the dawn of a new age or the beginning of our end? Like and subscribe, because the answer may already be on its way. What would you do if you knew we weren't alone, but owned?